podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Wrap Podcast, the place to catch up on all the regional and national rugby in Wales. You can find us on all the usual social media platforms and message us through there if you want, or you can email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. So all the boring stuff out the way, let's talk rugby.
Hello and welcome to a bonus edition of the Wrap Podcast. I'm Jamie and joining me for this one is James Rees. James, how are we?
I'm good, thank you. Enjoying the sun. But quite frankly, I'm a bit sick of it now. It's been 10 minutes. That's it. I'm bored.
Okay, fair enough. And also joining us for this one is Hugh Griffin, aka Catboy from the Scarlet's Fever and Pirate Rugby podcast. How are we doing, Hugh?
I'm good, very much the same as James. I've checked my weather app and it's saying that it's going to get to 27 degrees tomorrow. And my first thought was, oh, grow up.
Oh, you miserable buggers. About time we had some sun. Anyway, let's get straight into it. So there's going to be no drink of the week. None of us are drinking for various reasons. So we're scrapping that one and we're just going to get straight into it. So, news desk. Good news for you, Hugh. Johnny Williams, he signed a new contract, the Scarlets. Since moving from Newcastle back in 2020, Williams has made just 46 appearances. I thought he made more than that, but I guess injuries have taken a toll, haven't they? He scored 6 tries for the club and he's won 7 caps for Wales, so you must be pleased with that news.
Yeah, it's weird that he's only won 7 caps because, and I've mentioned this previously, the kind of paradigm around Johnny is that he was a Wales player and he had to play for the Scarlets to play for Wales, whereas now he's not in the Wales squad and he's arguably gone behind Eddie James in the Scarlets pecking order, but he's still signed the contract extension with us. So that's kind of, it's flipped now for Johnny and he's now Scarlets first. So I for me, it's like it's a fresh start with Johnny, is that he's a Scarlets player and he deserves all the backing. And he's one of those players that if you can get the most out of him, he's a huge asset. It's the question of, can we do that? And there's plenty of players who we could say that about this season at the Scarlets, is have we got the best out of them? So yeah, I'm happy. A lot of people thought that because he'd fallen behind Eddie James for 12 and he wasn't in the Wales squad, that would be him off. So it's kind of a pleasant surprise, really, that he's staying.
My issue with Johnny Williams is not him as a player. I think he's a very talented player. I think he's just so inconsistent. I've never seen him put a run of game, or I can't remember him put a run of games together for Scarlets.
He's
always had
very
injuries.
unlucky with injuries. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? He's a decent player, but injuries have really held him back, unfortunately.
Yeah, and he's been playing as a 13 this season, which is not his best position. We've been playing with an inside centre and an inside centre.
Oh, we'll come on to that. Don't worry.
Okay, moving on. 88-year-old Samoan centre Ray Lilo has signed a new 1-year contract to remain at the Arms Park. Only kidding, Cardiff fans. He's 38, not 88. That's just me being facetious. It's good news for Cardiff. Ray Lilo has been a great servant for him. He's very popular down at the Arms Park. Fans love him. I think it's fair to say he's been one of the best overseas signings in Welsh rugby. Would you agree?
Certainly one of the most consistent.
Yeah.
He's been, I think he's been better. He was better than Halahola for me across the board. I think obviously Halahola sticks in the memory more because of the Wales thing and the horrific injuries, but I think Lilo has been consistently good for a good few years, and I have no statistical analysis to back this up, but it feels like his performances hasn't dipped as his age has got more. I think with Halahola and as fine a player as Halahola is, the older he's gotten and the injuries has clearly taken a toll on his performance.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But I can't say the same about Lilo. So yeah, great for Cardiff, and I think, depending on what the Mason Grady position tombola turns out, it could be great for developing, whichever 12-year-old from Treorchy with 30 Wales caps they've got, coming through next.
Good stuff. Any comment from you, Hugh, on Ray Lilo?
No,
how do you rate him as a player?
Yeah, I do. Being 38 is obviously not at his peak anymore, but you'd have to say that he's probably still Cardiff's first choice outside centre, with Grady had been playing on the wing all season. So, yeah, it's important for them. It's probably a bit of a sign of where their squad still is. I think if they could have started from scratch with their squad, maybe he would have been someone they would have looked to move on. I'm sure the fans wouldn't. I know the fans love him, but obviously they're still, despite having all those checkbooks that they're itching to get out and splash across the world.
Charlie's.
He's still got obviously a big role to play. So I expect him to get loads of game time next season as well. So
yeah, okay, yeah, good news for Cardiff fans. Just a quick mention on an event that's happening on Thursday. So there's going to be a Q&A at the Dragons. Now, the Dragons have just tweeted that the chairman, David Wright, is not available. He's not going to be able to attend. But the event is still going to go ahead. They'll have Rhys Blumberg, the CEO, and head coach, Di Flanagan. That's going to be at 6:30 p.m. at Rodney Parade this Thursday. So if you are a Dragons fan...
You going, Jay?
Yes, I had to chat with the Dragons. I could bring my daughter along because I got a bit of a childcare issue. So I've asked them, can I bring my 8-year-old along? And they've said yes. So I will be going. So I think it'd be quite interesting to hear from Rhys Blumberg, new CEO, and also a recruitment update maybe from Di. I have got a question I'd like to ask Di, actually. So, yeah, I am looking forward to it.
Is it Chris Coleman related?
It's not Chris Coleman related, no.
is it?
Yeah.
Why does David Buttress call you David?
Why are you not Di Wright?
Di Wright, yeah. It was really weird when he was calling when Buttress was on our Dragons pod. Did you notice he was calling him David Flanagan? And it just threw me. It completely threw me.
It is like that, yeah.
Yeah. So he used to call him Di Flan. He was calling him David Flanagan. I was like, what? Yeah. So if you are a Dragons fan and you are available Thursday night, get out to Rodney Parade because it'd be good to.
They are really good events. I've done a few of them for the Ospreys. Some great ones. You know, that there was one I went to, and it was either Lauren Jenkins or Catherine Helleth hosting it. And it had Toby Booth, Jack Walsh, who had just signed, Jack Morgan. I might mix it up. But anyway, someone said, someone shouted from the crowd of questions. It was about like getting families to rugby matches.
Yeah.
And he goes, you know, it's all about the fan experience. You know, the husband takes the boys to the rugby while the you know, the wife goes to the Morva shopping with the daughters. And there was just like an audible gasp throughout the room, and like Toby Booth, Jack Walsh, and Jack Morgan, I think it was that Q&A, were just sort of stood on the stage like, what the fuck do we do here?
Nice bit of stereotyping here, isn't
this
it?
man is throwing out the most sexy, and he got pelters from around the room. Like, and there's some really great women involved in like the supporters side from the Ospreys. I think most of the supporters club are run by some amazing women, and they were just giving him pelters all evening.
Absolutely, so
they are great. They're great for comedy value like that.
Mm.
Yeah. The Scarlets one, there's a sign as you go in that says, please leave your pitchfork here. Do not take it inside.
Yeah.
Murder weapon.
Can imagine.
Yeah. There's a metal detector that you have to walk through as you go in.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity for fans to voice their opinions, though, isn't it? I mean, whether the coaches actually want to hear them or not, I don't know. But yeah, it is worth attending these events because you may get some answers to the questions that you've been asking on social media. So yeah, if you are in the area, like I said, you're Dragons supporter, get along to Rodney Parade on Thursday for that Q&A. Right, let's get into the Wales stuff then, boys. We need to talk about Sam Parry, don't we? So this was a big talking point last week. Of course, a bit of a hoo-ha on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So Sam Parry left the Wales camp last week amid reports that he felt disrespected by Warren Gatland. Now, Gatland was asked about this on Saturday, and he said that you will need to talk to him, but my door is always open for any conversations or discussion with any players in the squad if they have any feelings or need anything clarified. He then went on to say, I understand his agent has been pretty vocal and said some stuff, which is a little bit disappointing. So Just for context, his agent is believed to be former Wales international Derwyn Jones. They said, I never closed the door on a player. Not sure I quite believe that, to be honest, given that things have happened in the past. But he said, I never closed the door on a player. Whether he's had any regrets about his decision, sometimes people make compulsive decisions, and players as well. So this was the distraction we probably did need before the tour to Australia. There's enough on-field stuff, off-field stuff going on in Welsh rugby, isn't there, without this? James, let's come to you then. What did you make of the whole Sam Parry situation? Do you think he was justified to leave the camp, first of all?
So
or do you think he should have
do want to clarify that I'm just trying to think. I don't think Derwyn Jones is his like actual personal agent. I think does he own the company that
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I know where you're coming from now. Yeah, the BBC did report it as Derwyn Jones, though.
Yeah. So he's mad. So yeah, he is an agent and managing director at Win Sports Management, who manage a lot of Welsh-based rugby players. You know, they still, that company still manage Emmanuel Faye-Waboso and things like that. So, Harry Randall. So a lot of that current squad under that management. Yeah. So what was reported was that essentially mistreatment. This is, and I would like to point out, none of this has been Sam Parry or Sam Parry has not come out and made a comment. So we are all going off what's been reported, mainly by the Daily Mail and off Gatland's comments. So Sam Parry's reportedly unhappy with his treatment within the Wales camp, in that he was originally. So he was named in the 36-man squad, or however many it was, and he was under the impression that he was a full squad member. Now, he turned up and found that he wasn't given the same amount of kit as everyone else.
Yeah.
And he wasn't being involved, essentially, with the conversations between the other hookers and the management and various other things. And then, I think there was another thing I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, so he felt that he wasn't being treated with the respect that he deserves. So he decided to leave the squad. Now, as it happened, and this is according to Gatland, that Elliot D pulled out on Tuesday with injury, and then so Gatland said, "Oh well, he would have been in the match day squad, and he would have gone. Well, he would have been travelling reserve, sorry, and he would have gone to Australia anyway." Now we don't know that. That's not 100%, but what we do know is he would have been travelling reserve. But he seems to, Sam Parry made up his mind, and we're not talking about here Sam Parry, who's like a 26-year-old hooker who's got 70 caps for his club, who's and is an uncapped international who's thrown his toys at the pram. Sam Parry's a seasoned veteran, essentially, of Welsh rugby. He's been around since we signed him in 2014, and he was at the Dragons before.
Yeah.
So he's been around the block. He knows, he's been in environments. He's paid his dues, essentially. So, for him to feel, and reportedly for him to feel like he's been mistreated and walk out, it is a lot. And I think speaks to the culture that's been created or seemingly created within the Wales squad. And it's been rightly pointed out that it's all well and good Gatland saying, well, my door's always open, but clearly the environment that's been created points to, well, we feel like we can't go see our coach.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you apply that to your work now, most places have a line manager, right?
Yeah.
Where the person you're supposed to go see if you have any concerns or you're questioning things about your job and things like that. If your line manager creates an issue in which you can't go or you feel you can't go and talk to someone, then that's an issue. People have rightly pointed out, well, where's Martin Williams in this? His job is literally team manager. So the other point that's being brought up, I saw on X is there. Lauren Jenkins actually brought up the Scrum 5. Players have got a voice nowadays. Players, are not afraid to speak their mind and the cultures in which they're in. Arguably encourage that. So it's a very delicate situation. I am, an Ospreys podcast and, a diehard Ospreys fan, and, I back Sam Parry all the way. But we don't have all the facts. I just hope that Sam is okay. And if he feels that it's the right decision, then we shouldn't question that. So that's where I am on it. I don't know if Hugh. I think Hugh has slightly different views on it.
Yeah, Hugh, what's your thoughts on this then?
My completely honest reaction to this story is I'm surprised at how big of a deal it's turned into. Like James said, we don't have all of the facts. It's turned into a bit of a he said, she said type scenario, although, like James also rightly pointed out, Sam Parry has not been quoted anywhere in the press. He apparently left the squad on the Monday, and the story was broken on the Friday night. That is not unusual. It happens in other sports where a journalist will find a story and then sit on it and then release it at an opportune moment. Alex Bywater obviously gained a lot of favour for his excellent reporting around the Wales strike action saga a couple of years ago. He has also done some. He had shall we say, a tete-a-tete with Alwyn Jones, where he asked Alwyn Jones for an interview. Alwyn Jones said no, and Alex Bywater put out an opinion piece hammering Alwyn Jones, for instance, and saying that, talking about his behaviour and how nobody likes him, etc., etc. It's obviously there's a lot of Welsh fans at the moment who have knives out for Gatland, and I think this was very much a story of interest to fans who are looking to hammer Gatland. I think, if the story had been that Sam Parry had been the subject of ridicule or bullying in the Wales camp, which is something that other players in the past have alleged, e.g. Lee Byrne, then I would have a very strong view on it. That doesn't seem to be what's being alleged. If a player thought he was going to get picked and then he's not got picked, and Sam Parry has never been in the top 5 hookers in Wales, if we're honest, he's never been that close to being a starter for Wales. I'm just, like I said, I'm surprised at how much of a furore it's caused. Players walking out of camp, just straight up walking out of camp, is very rare. Even if you look at like England and Australia squads under Eddie Jones and some of the stories about Eddie Jones, you never saw players walking out of camp. So it's highly unusual. So it's just an odd situation. Like I said, it's turned into a bit of a he said, she said. And yeah, and I don't really feel as passionate about it as some other fans do.
So what I will say was, again, leading on from Hugh's point, is that Derwyn Jones did say on the radio that he's felt that Gatland has never been a good communicator with players. Yeah. Which is, again, something that has been brought up in the past. And his handling of situations, the famous one being 2013 around O'Driscoll and the Lions. So how that was handled, I think, was the bit that annoyed everyone, not the drop-in of it. Because ultimately Jamie Roberts had a storm, or Jonathan Davis had a stormer. They put 40 on the Australians, and, it was how it was handled. So I think on his point of he walked out because he wasn't picked, I think it wasn't communicated to him that his role in the squad.
But so then Gatland has said that he did tell him.
Again, we've only got one side of the story. Gatland's the two interviews Gatland did, as pointed out by Cardiff Rugby Life, don't add up. they're not consistent. So again, this is all alleged because Sam Perry, and we probably will never get a resolution to the story. But as Hugh said, for a player to walk out of an international camp is very, very rare. And it's happened. Evan Daniel's in the squad. I hope Evan Daniel does very well. I hope he gets some game time. And having spoken to Sam, not mentioning the incident at all. I said, look, I hope you have a really good pre-season, or really good rest up, really good family time, and I hope you go into pre-season, fit and raring to go. And that's all you can ask as a player. It's one of them stories, unfortunately, like you said, will drag on, and a journalist has sat on, and is clearly there to antagonise the anti-Gatland movement further, and that will keep being added to, because little tidbits of that story will start to creak out, which will consistently pile on the pressure. So it's a murky situation. Jamie, do you have any thoughts on it?
I just think it's an unwelcome distraction, isn't it? There's so much going on in Welsh rugby. We don't really need this on top of it. I don't think Gatland has ever really been a good man manager, if I'm being honest. He had this reputation as being 1 year ago. I don't think he's ever really been a good man manager. And I've been told that Rob Howley leads a lot of the coach, like in the first Gatland stint he had. And Rob Howley did all the coaching. He was doing all the talking. Gatland is more of a delegator. That's what I've been told. So it is disappointing that this has happened. Going back to Derwyn Jones, he had a lot to say, didn't he, about Gatland this weekend? He was saying that you could be under pressure if you don't get a result in Australia. So it makes me think there's something going on there, isn't there? Something is brewing between Derwyn Jones and Gatland.
What I would like to say on Derwyn Jones is, a lot of people's opinion on Derwyn Jones comes from the fact that he wasn't perceived to be not a very good player. Derwyn Jones's ability as a player has nothing to do with his ability to be a player agent.
Oh, of course not, no.
But the Welsh rugby public don't get that as well. And
no,
I don't think people understand just how many people his company represents. They represent the majority of that Wales squad. Yeah. Like, the vast majority of that Wales squad is represented by Win Sports Management.
Yeah.
And
no, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a big conspiracy. I think Derwyn Jones probably was the wrong person to have on radio commentary. But you've got to remember, he's in constant communication with these players who, is there. That's the relationship an agent and a player has, is to give feedback on the environment that they're in.
Yeah.
And an agent has got to have the best interests of, his client. So, of course, it's going to come out as, well, Derwyn Jones doesn't like Gatland because he's upsetting his clients. So there's a lot that I think Derwyn Jones was the wrong person to have on radio commentary on Saturday, and I don't think it was an accident that he was on radio commentary either.
No. Interesting.
I really don't think it's not.
No. Yeah, I think it's a combination of bad communication and bad man management personally. But like you said, there's two sides to every story, isn't it? And it would be interesting to hear from Sam Parry himself, and maybe I think in time we will get to hear his side of it. So we got to be careful, I suppose.
I think it was a mistake to let the Mail break it. If he did leave on Monday, why not put a statement out on Tuesday morning and say Sam Parry has withdrawn from the Wales squad and this guy has been called up in his place?
Personal reasons, yeah. But that's classic WIU, though.
It is to try and get away with it. It's a serious problem in Welsh rugby. Is
they've never been able to get
trying
on
to
top of these stories.
Yeah,
they've never ever been good again. I don't know who's in their communications team, but I think they're constantly on annual leave.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's our thoughts on the Sam Parry situation. Like I said, it's unfortunate. It's very Welsh rugby that this has happened, but yeah, we wait and see
All it's done is give
what
Simon
happens.
Williams a new book.
Yeah.
He's basically just signed a six-figure book deal for book 2.
Oh,
The
dear.
Sam Parry years.
He can get quite a few bucks out of Welsh rugby, though, couldn't
Yeah,
he? Like he could
he's
keep
set for
writing and
life.
writing. He's going to be absolutely fine if he wants to do a follow-up. Right, let's get into the squad then. So it's been announced today. It's been finalised. Wales 34-man squad. So I'm not going to go through all of them because we haven't got time. So I'm just going to say the main talking points. So Kieran Azarati, Elliot Dee, and Henry Thomas have been ruled out of the tour. Azarati suffered a back injury against South Africa, while Dee failed to recover from an ankle injury sustained prior to Wales camp, and Thomas is currently recovering from a foot injury. And then James Ratty, who was called late into the squad last week, he's been left out, and he made his Wales debut off the bench against South Africa on Saturday. So there's 3 uncapped players in the squad. We got Regan Grace, Ifan Daniel, and Josh Hathaway. Dewey Lake is captain, despite the return of Dav Jenkins. I thought Dav Jenkins would have been captain, but no, he's stuck with Lake. The makeup of the Wales squad is quite interesting. You got 10 players from Cardiff, 7 from the Scarlets, 4 from Dragons, and just 3 from the Ospreys. That's unusual, isn't it? I can't remember a time where Ospreys have had such few representation in the Wales squad. It's very unusual. And then outside
There'll be a
Wales,
Russ Petty stat within like an hour, letting you know
yes,
when. Don't worry.
it would be good to know because, like I said, I can't remember a time when Ospreys had such few players in the Wales squad. 10 players outside of Wales selected in the squad. So you got 2 from Bath, 2 from Exeter, 1 from Leicester, Saracens, Harlequins, Gloucester, and then you got 2 from Japan, Kubota Spears and Seacon Ruggets. So those are the takeaways from the squad. We've all seen it now. Let's come on to you then, Hugh, first. What do you make of that squad? What's the biggest takeaway for you when you look at that squad? What stands out?
I think the tight head situation is obviously the interesting one. Dylan Lewis being the most established tight head now in the Welsh squad. It's mad to think that 6 months ago, he allegedly didn't know whether he was qualified for Wales or not anymore. So I think, we're going to play against an Australian team that's not known for its scrummaging, despite having a huge pack. People don't realise that about Australia, is they've got one of the biggest packs going. There seems to be a trend with the referees at the moment of so long as the ball ends up at the number 8's feet, play on. So hopefully that does us a favour. It's a fair amount of pressure on Harry O'Connor now, who's going to get a lot of game time. So he's just going to have to learn on the job, I'm afraid. Apart from that, I'm worried about the centres a bit. I don't think the centres worked at the weekend, and I'm not seeing a solution to that. I think we're missing Joe Roberts badly, which is mad to say because he's only got 2 caps. Yeah, and at least the second row situation has turned out to be better than we perhaps feared. We'll talk about that a bit more in a bit. And then, I know James knows Regan Grace and is a big fan of him. It is a bit of a kick for other wingers in Wales who will probably feel like they've done more in the 15s game.
Who are them wingers? That's why I want to know. Like, I'm genuinely asking a question because they're all injured.
Yeah. There's not tons of depth. I'll give you that. I don't disagree, but it's just a funny one, isn't it? That a guy who's not played a competitive game of rugby union is on tour.
Oh no, I agree with you, but like the calls for Gabriel Hamer-Webb, I don't get. He's had 2 decent games of Cardiff. It's the classic thing at the start of the season where people get 1 decent game. They're like, "Oh right, get him in the autumn internationals." The Sam Cross situation. You've got Tom Rogers is the other one who's been out of Wales camp. I don't know if he's injured.
He's injured, yeah.
He's injured. So yeah, so there is no. Everyone's like, it's a kick in the face for Owen Lane. It's not. Owen Lane had his chance.
No, it's not international standard. I'm sorry. I like Owen Lane, but he's not national standard.
Same with Jared. Is it Jared Ross, the older one?
Jared's injured. Ewan is fit. You could have picked
Ewan's
him.
fit.
Yeah,
but
he's had a good season.
you wouldn't call him out. You wouldn't call him up.
But you did say we've got more data for them than we have for Regan.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think he was always going to roll the dice. Regan Grace was going to get called up if it wasn't now. He was going to get called up in the autumn anyway. It's just fact. They've been wanting to get hit. The plan was to take him to the 23 World Cup. That was the plan. The plan was that he was going to play for Racing. They were going to either get him into the Six Nations squad, they were going to get him into the World Cup warm-ups, and he was going to go to France. But he redid his Achilles.
He's never played a competitive game of rugby, though. I mean, at least with Hamer Webb and Ross and others, you can say, well, they played competitive rugby. So this is a huge gamble, isn't it?
It's a huge
gamble.
He's it's not like he's the only wing. It's not like he's called up just, Regan Grace. He's got Sanjay, he's got Rio Dyer, who are likely going to be the starting wings.
Yeah. Congrats to Eddie. I will say congrats to Eddie James. Obviously delighted for him from a Scarlet's point of view. I don't think he's anywhere near his ceiling, so I think he's going to get a lot of Wales caps in the future. I'm just dreading what that team we're going to put out against the Queensland Reds is going to be at the end of July. My goodness me, what? Yeah, I think we can piece together a decent 15 and then a bench that passes the sniff test, but it's a very strange time to be a Wales fan.
That Reds game is going to be interesting. Do you remember when Wales toured New Zealand a few years ago?
Yeah,
the Chiefs, and they got absolutely battered by the Chiefs. It would not surprise me if we lost to the Reds. I can tell you that now. They've been good at Super Rugby this year, the Reds.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is going to be tricky. Any other names that stand out for you? Well, for me, anyway, I got to say, well done, Matthew Screech. Because for all the banter, and I was part of it on social media as well, I won't lie, I want Matthew Screech to do well. But it was just the fact he was coming up against Ivan Etzebeth. So lots of memes, lots of jokes. To be fair, we'll talk about it later on in the game. He did all right, didn't he? To be fair to him, he did all right. And I'm glad he's going to Australia. Fair play to him.
I haven't seen any apologies from some of the people who put out memes about the second road. I think, particularly, some of the comments about Ben Carter before the game were way offside. He's a great player. He's had a great season.
I didn't see much about Ben Carter. I saw more Screech. It might just be the vacuum I'm in. But absolutely, I will hold my hand up and say the Screech was fine. I do think there's a bit of hyperbole saying he played really, really well and like he was fine.
No, he was fine. But he didn't look out of place, did he? He did not look out of place. No,
he did his job really well.
Yeah, good on him, I say. I mean, I don't think he'll make the World Cup, mind, because Gatland's been saying he's got an opportunity to make the World Cup. I'm thinking, no, not really. But fair play to him.
Not to rip off, a podcast hosted by a very, handsome man. But do you remember the Wales squad for that Chiefs game?
I know Gareth Davies played in it because he scored a try.
So it was Matthew Morgan, Eli Walker,
Tyler Matthew Morgan, bloody hell, they were the days.
Doc Williams, Tom James, Reece Priestland, Cowdor, Rob Evans, Scott Baldwin, Thomas Francis. That's not terrible. Jake Ball, Luke Charteris, captain. That's good. Josh Turnbull, Sam Warburton, James King. That's not terrible.
That's not a bad team.
That's not a
bad team.
And then you got Christian Dacey, Aaron Jarvis, underrated. Rodri Jones, Bradley Davis, Tau Lupe, Alid Davis, Jamie Roberts, and Reece Petchell.
That's not a bad team.
That's not bad.
And they lost to, it was admittedly a very good Chiefs team.
Classic case of throwing any old team out there onto the pitch and hoping it would do well. Like the Lions in 2017 lost a bunch of games to Super Rugby franchises as well.
More importantly, there's a former Osprey on the officiating team. One Jamie Nutbrown.
There's a blast of the past.
An assistant referee, which I completely forgotten about. So yeah, sorry, not to rip off good player, from available on all good podcast services.
Yeah, you keep that for your pod. This is random, right? So let's not do a crossover. Right. Is there any other names or anything else about the squad that you want to pick up on? Any other thoughts?
Let's get it out the way because it is a talking point. So I did ask on X about any questions from mainly the Ospreys fans because I tweeted it off the IRA account. I said, any comments around it. And there's a lot of people saying, oh, actually, well, injuries are prevented. Like Ospreys would have had like 8 or 9 in the squad. So I wanted to get your thoughts on this. So this is from a certain journalist on X who said that lots of talk over Ospreys only having 3 players. You've got to look at from the bigger picture. So had Jack Morgan, Giles, Beard, Fender, and Rhys Davies been fit, they would have been in. So that's 8. Jack Morgan and Beard, I would give you 100% that they would have been in. We both know that Jack Morgan and Beard, we can count them in. Would Giles have gone? Maybe.
I don't think so.
If Cabango was fit, Gatland said he would have picked Cabango.
So that Rhys Davies, he's been finicky on. He's picked him in squads, but has never really played him.
And what if the thing is, we could do this with like every region. Like, what if Teddy Williams was fit?
This is coming from a journalist, and then he says Nicky Smith and Garen Phillips most likely would have been there with any lucid injuries. No, I'm sorry, absolutely not. Garen Phillips is a great prospect at Loosehead, right? But he, would be nowhere near that Wales squad if there's injuries. I'm sorry. And Nicky, he's proven not to pick him. Like, unless there's genuinely an injury crisis.
Going back to what you said, Jamie, about Gatland saying, I've never closed the door on a player.
Exactly.
I can think of a couple.
Nonsense.
Sam Parry, we can assume he might have been in. Gatland from just got off Gatland's comments. Ruben Morgan-Williams or Bevan were probably close. Well, it clearly wasn't because he quoted on why he liked Bevan. Was he's big, he's got a left-booted option. Despite Wales inquiring about Ruben Morgan-Williams, I don't think the door's shut for Ruben. But clearly they felt there's a point of difference with Bevan. Fair enough. Dan Edwards, Gatland is quoted in saying that he wants size at 10. So he's not picking Dan Edwards. Morgan Morse, who's still 12. That's it. And Nagy, who's not eligible. I'm not convinced he'll pick Nagy.
Nobody knows where Nagy's from. It changes every time. 1 week he's from Hungary, the next week he's from England.
Well, no,
he's
definitely from England. He's
still trying to find out. It's crazy how long it's taken for him to find out.
Well, because the laws for university students changed during the time he was at uni, so it's all up in the air. So anyway, going up from some comments from listeners of Rap and Irie. So John Kirkpatrick said most of that squad has spent season going backwards. Yeah, it's definitely a tight head. You can argue that's the weakest of the scrum. Simon Payton says we're seriously underrepresented. I get that we're planning for the future, but we have some serious youngsters. He feels bad for Ratty, who's had an immense season, who's been overlooked for Hill and Screech. I think Screech played his way into the squad on Saturday.
Yeah,
I think so too. I think he did, in all honesty.
In terms of the debt collector, he's experienced in that squad.
But that's the issue there, right there.
Yeah.
So Ratty should have been in for the debt collector. Colehill should be nowhere near that squad. I'm sorry, we should.
If just from the second rows, the makeup of that squad, cap-wise, is David Jenkins is on 17, Ben Carter's on 12, Christians is on 12, and Matthew Screech is on 2.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of if you say under 20 caps, that's not a lot of experience when you've got likelihood your starting lock partnership might be David Jenkins and Ben Carter. Maybe.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So Garrick Bads, his 3 Ospreys, has our representation ever been so low? Was it 4 in the last 6 Nations?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way is down. Hopefully all the Dragons, hopefully they've learned how to pronounce Dewi correctly. Feel sorry for Ratty. a lot of thoughts about the Aussie scrum. Now, I'm not convinced by the Australian scrum. I never have been. James Slipper's great, but they're not a scrumming team.
Gareth Thomas and Tom Francis folded them in half in the World Cup.
Yeah. And if you actually watch Squidge's video, you'll see how effective both Gareth Thomas and Thomas Francis were as a partnership. Here's an interesting one here. Tom Reeves says, lacking a 10. I don't know whether he means like another 10 or he's attacking Costello. And an attack coach with credibility. Now, we've spoken privately at length about Sam Costello, right? And while I didn't think he had an amazing game, he had a fine. I think he was definitely 6 out of 10 on Saturday. Is the problem? Yes, he's being thrown out there on his own. There's no 10 cover in the squad. There's no respite for him. But is also the problem the system?
Yeah. Are we talking about the game now?
I'm not talking about the game in particular. I'm just using the game as an example. Whereas, because everything is pointed to Wales have no attacking game, right? Yeah. And a lot of that does come down on Costello, right? And
disagree. Wales's attack is non-existent.
Yeah, this is what I mean. And what I'm saying is the focal point for that abuse goes through Costello.
Yes, he is the focal point for it. But Wales's best attacking moments in the game came through Costello, with his crossfield kicks and his the wraparound play that unfortunately the pass went behind a player. He is. If we want to talk about the pack going backwards, then you can't then have a go at Costello and say, oh well, he's not doing this, that, or the other. I've watched every game, obviously, that the Scarlets have played this season. The difference between having him in the team and not is night and day. He drags the team around the pitch, and I felt he dragged Wales around the pitch on Saturday as well. When he gets the ball, it is a huge case of, oh shit, we're not going anywhere. Sam, sort us out, will you? And he's a 23-year-old kid. He's gone from Scarlet's senior academy to Wales' first choice with zero competition in 12 months. He is my favourite player. But I do get very worked up with the amount of stick that he gets. Because I just think some of the things that people say about him, like, it's not based on data. It's not based on things that people have seen him do. It's just a blame the 10. When in doubt, blame the 10.
That's Welsh rugby, though. We've always blamed the 10. Look at the stick that Neil Jenkins used to get. Howell Thomas, Stephen Jones, James Hook, Dan Bigger. He's in that club, I'm afraid. A lot of people always blame the 10. It's a poison chalice.
Yeah. Howell Thomas had to go into selling dentist equipment. That's how bad it got.
We'll get on to talking about the game. I will say this. Some of his teammates at Scarlet's level and at Wales level are doing nothing for him.
Okay.
Are there parts of his game though that you think they do have to improve? Like that kick. I know not every kick's a guarantee, right? But that kick he missed, this is not singling it out, it just feels like such an anomaly because then he nails that conversion from Derry Lake's try, which is it's a much harder kick to make.
Yeah, but that was reminiscent of the one he missed against the Dragons as well. And he is prone to missing really easy kicks, isn't he? That's another weakness of his. But then, like you said, he can nail touchline conversions.
It was a mixed bag performance. You remember the easy ones that he misses. You don't remember the other 12 that he gets.
No, I just mean in terms of like, what is the thing? Is it the people around him, or what does he need to work on to take it to the next level to be a really great Wales 10?
I think he is playing with a millstone around his neck of being undisputed number 110 in Wales.
Okay.
And he feels a huge amount of pressure for it. And he is not taking the ball to the line as he used to. And I think he feels a pressure to save the day every time, to sort it out, to I think Gatland has told him that he needs to kick more. So he is kicking a lot more and he's hanging deeper in order to kick more. Um, it's very difficult to judge him because he's playing in two teams where the pack is on roller skates going backwards.
No, that's fair.
Is it also a case of he doesn't have any competition in both teams either?
Yep. And I think is a massive case of he doesn't have a senior 10 to learn off either. He's got the best he's got is Neil Jenkins at Wales.
Right. Are there any other thoughts on the Wales squad before we actually move on to the game then?
Well, Dylan Lewis is still our most capped forward, with 57.
That is a lot, to be fair.
It is a lot of caps. I'm not sure how effective our back row is going to be in Oz, if I'm honest.
I'm all worried about the front row. The front row is the biggest concern for me, especially as you mentioned.
Well, the front row is a concern anyway. That's a given. We can't. Gareth Thomas. It's going to be Gareth Thomas, David Lake, and Dylan Lewis, right? That's your starting front row, which is fine. And it's what comes on afterwards is more worrying. So the back row for me is going to be Tame Plumtree at 6, who I thought did have a really good game. Is really good at defense, really resolute in defense. He does. I would like to see him with ball in hand more, but I have a feeling that's a thing from the Wales management team is we want you to hit rucks and tackle, not carry. Which is great when you have Jack Morgan in your back row.
He's a bit similar to Wainwright. Is my issue is that they're a bit similar to each other.
They are a bit similar. He also but this is something that's pointed out to a smidge actually. World Rugby clearly said to the referees this weekend, "I want you to be really hot on rolling away penalties," and he got caught for that 3 times.
Yeah.
This is coming from Stephen Thomas, a journalist as well, who has commented on he is prone to a penalty. So you're going to have him, Wainwright, who again was good on the weekends.
Wainwright's always good, class player.
He's very good, and then it's going to be Tommy Raffel.
Yeah,
I don't know why I've got a bad feeling they're going to go up against a Rob Valentini, who I bloody love. I'm a big fan of Rob Valentini. Harry Wilson, no, not that one. And what
Tom Hooper, probably.
Tom Hooper. Is that the back row is going to take us to victory? Is a Jim Botham better? I don't think Jim Botham was very effective on the weekend. Should we go into the game so I can talk about Jim Botham?
Yes, let's get into it then. So
I think
on
Jim
Saturday.
Botham, go on.
I was just about to say. So South Africa 41, Wales 13. Now we all had reservations before this game, didn't we? We looked at the lineups, and James, you said the same as me that this could be a 50-60 pointer. And let's be honest, after 15 minutes, when Wales were trailing 14-3 and they were down to 13 men, there was 2 yellow cards to Rio Dyer and Aaron Wainwright. I thought that, we're going to be on for 50-60 points a year. We're going to get absolutely battered. To be fair, we was only 1 point down going into halftime. And that scoreline, I know it's a comfortable win for South Africa. It's pretty comprehensive. I don't know about what you two think, but for me, I'm not saying this was good, but it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yes, the bar is low now. The expectations have gone down. But honestly, I thought this was going to be so much more worse than it was. And let's not forget, we butchered a try in the first half as Bevan couldn't hang on to that pass. They had a try given, which shouldn't have been given because it was a clear forward pass. So I'm not saying it was good by any means, and it wasn't particularly great, but I don't know about you, I didn't think it was that bad, all things considered, given the lineups and everything going into the game. What did you guys think of it?
I watched it back, fast forwarding the bits where the ball wasn't in play. And if you watch it that way, it looks a lot worse than it felt watching live. It wasn't a great game. Jordan Hendricks getting his debut at Springbok 10, I thought had a poor game, not hammering the gid because obviously it was his first cap. You know, the first caps are supposed to go badly, but go badly it did. Yeah, it wasn't competitive, unfortunately. There's not much to say really in terms of as a contest. Yes, I guess it wasn't as bad as we thought we feared it might be, especially when we were down to 13 with 14 points to 3 down.
It was an awful start.
No one's
really
crediting,
awful start.
No one's crediting Costello for his game management when we were down to 13, I noticed. I thought Ellis Bevan had a good debut. I think he's showed that he's able to play scrum half at international level. Dewey Lake obviously showed what we've been missing in the Six Nations. You know, me and Harley did the stats pod. Clearly, Wales' is best front row carrier by a long way.
Yeah, he was great.
And we know that Ben Carter can do a job. Some of the tries were poor, like the Edwill van der Merwe one right at the end where he runs straight over the middle. There was a poor try to concede. Sanjay showed his class. Again, the problem with Sanjay has never been that he's a bad player. It's always just been his availability. But the stat that jumped out to me when I looked back at the stats was 70 carries for 124 meters. Our top carrier was Aaron Wainwright with 38. Our top carrying back was Sanjay with 20. Simply not enough, not good enough. You know, if you're going to be like a Bulls style team where you only make 70 carries but you score 6 tries, fine. But that's clearly not the plan. The plan is for us to be a high carrying island style team where we pick and go around the corner and pick and go around the corner. It's not, you know, we've got personnel issues as a team, but the attack being that bad is not a personnel issue. It's a coaching game plan issue. And you remember the game against Scotland, first game of the Six Nations, when how bad we were in the first half, and then we came back in the second half, and Gatland says, all we need to do is play like we did in the second half, and we'll be all right. And what happened in that second half was that the game plan was atrocious, and the players went, "I'll sod this. Let's just duet and see what happens." And then the rest of the Six Nations was like the rest of the first half against Scotland. It's a serious, serious problem of the game plan in possession the Gatland is trying to play, and it needs to change.
I think what did stand out for me, though, yet another scoreless second half. And this is becoming a worrying trend now, and I don't like it at all.
James, well, you pick Cardiff players, you ask if it's scoreless half. They're the kings of it. No, I'm joking.
Don't upset our Cardiff listeners now, James, please.
Am I right in saying, Hugh, that 68 of Wales's meters carried or meters made came from Dewi Lake and Aaron Wainwright?
I thought it was. Oh no, it might be actually. I think Mason Grady made
that much.
Mason Grady made 19 meters, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of Dewey Lake's meters will be for his try. That will be a good half of that 30.
That'll be 10 meters at most, I say. Anyway, but in terms of the game, the tagline is "could be worse." Like if that game had,
yes, that's how I feel about it. It wasn't great, but it could be worse.
If that was a chapter title in a book, it would be "could be worse."
Yeah,
and I was the one who was most accurate in my predictions. Right, I said 38-19 to the Springboks on X, and I got pelted for it. And then there was 41-13. Like, come on, guys! They called me a madman. My issue is the depth. I think the starting 15 was fine. I think the centre combination clearly didn't work. And I don't see I see a lot of pelters coming towards Owen Watkins' way. And go on here. Go on.
It's a common trend with Watkin when he wears 13. If we're going to play him as a 12 and have him as a distributing 12, because his outstanding characteristic is his passing, fine. As a 13, the stats say 2 carries for 0 meters, 0 defenders beaten, 0 line breaks. Like I say, the system and the game plan is the biggest thing that's at fault. Unfortunately, and we've talked about this before, it is a trend for Owen Watkin when he wears 13 for Wales. I just don't think that he's the right man for that position in that team at the moment. If we were talking about him as a 12, it'd be a different conversation. But
but
13, not for me.
He's scapegoated for it. He can only go out there and play with what he's given, right? And clearly he's not given the ball.
What about Grady then? Because
he's not
the big takeaway for me, that didn't work for me. No. Now, I know we're trying to build a team around Mason Grady, and I get it. But Richie Rees said something quite similar on Radio Wales. He said, he's not a 12. I know because I've coached him. He's not a 12. What is his best position? If we're going to go forward, building a team around Mason Grady, who we can all agree is a very talented, skillful young player, where are we going to play him? 13, 12 or on the wing? Because at the moment, we seem to be shuffling him about. We don't really know what to do with him. Where are we going to play him?
I feel like it needs to be like a Rico Ioane type thing of start him on the wing and then bring him into 13 later in his career.
Yeah.
I feel like
my issue is not him going forward. It's his positioning. If you put him at wing, that Ospreys game at Judgment Day, I said on the day he's like a lost child in defence. He's just, and I don't know whether that comes from Cardiff's system or whether that's just him in general being so hungry to hit the ball carrier or to hit man on ball. Is he was for, I'm trying to think, every Ospreys try where he was. So the first one, he misses a tackle on Nagy. Nagy did a bit similar to what Costello did to Fassi, sends him the other way because he put a scuff kick in. The Luke Morgan try, he's in no man's land. So he's in the middle bit. He's going from glorious interception. And then what's the other one? There's another one. Anyway, but my issue is with defensive positioning. But when South Africa made their outside breaks, he was very good on that scramble D.
Yeah, agree.
So it's saying that I may be more inclined to be like, is he a 13? Because if they do make that outside break, I actually quite like Mason chasing that down.
I think in the modern international game, you need pace to play 13, and he's got that.
Yeah.
I find myself thinking he should score more than he does. I've seen him a couple of times not finish chances that I think were on, but they'll start going in. It's like strikers in football; they have a barren spell and then they'll start going in.
Is it the Edinburgh game? He got chased
down by Duan van der Merwe, and I thought you should have scored that. But like I say, they'll start going in for him. But that's kind of another reason why I don't really think Watkin is the right man for 13, because he's not comparing to Jesse Creel, who was up against, it was night and day. So
it's where I personally, I think this might be Owen Watkins' last soiree in a Wales jersey.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Tompkins, because Tompkins had a poor Six Nations. So it'll be interesting I thought Tompkins was only in the team because he had the cohesion with George North. Now George North's not there. Tompkins is still getting picked. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him in Australia.
So on form, right, realistically, we should be picking Ben Thomas at 12.
Yeah, this is my issue, is he's a completely different kind of player to Grady. Yeah. So if Gatland's decided he wants Jamie Roberts 0.2, then he needs to stick with Grady and just keep doing it till it works. But for me, if I was Wales head coach, I'd be picking Ben Thomas at 12.
Yeah, I would too. I think I don't know. I feel sorry. My underlying thing as an Ospreys fan is I feel sorry for Owen Watkin. Is because he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. But I do think that the system and having him at 12, having him at 13, is just not going to work. And you either just don't play him, or you play him at 12 in his natural position and use him as distributor. Or if you want to get over the game line, he can get over the game line.
Yeah.
But I think if you're going for a distributor 12, you play Ben Thomas.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Quick shout outs for me then. So I know he had a yellow card. I thought Aaron Wainwright put in another superb shift. Honestly, that guy works his socks.
One of the best yellow cards I've ever seen in my life. If
He
you're
had
going
to
to
do
give
it. He was
away,
under pressure. Yeah.
if you're going to give away a penalty try, well, no, he didn't have to. If you just let him score,
Oh, he was. I know, but
it's a harder kick. But it's one of the best penalty tries. It's like a French scrum half. It was that blatant. It was
yeah,
so
I
good.
know, but he was really, really good. He gave away. I don't know how many penalties he gave away. He felt like a lot. It probably wasn't that
Two,
many.
I think
But
it was two.
no, I was going to talk about Tame Plumtree. I
Oh,
like
three.
Tame Plumtree. It was 3 penalties. I still thought he had a good game. I really like Plumtree. I think there's more to come from him.
I
Mentioned
agree.
earlier, yeah, definitely. The locks as well. Again, I know I've already mentioned, but
Mhm.
shout out to Screech and Cars because all the hype, all the bloody, nonsense surrounding them and the banter. And I actually thought that they gave it all. That was Ben Carter's best game in the Wales jersey because a lot of people criticize Ben Carter because they feel that he's not dominant enough, he's not physical enough, he doesn't carry enough. I thought he had a very strong game about South Africa, and he did stand out. He could have been yellow carded. He could have been
Still
yellow
don't think he's
carded.
dominant.
He was more dominant in this game, is what I'm saying, compared to other. Yeah, he stood out, didn't he? Yeah.
What name a moment that Etzebeth or Mostert had?
Mostert gave away a penalty.
Well, there you go. Exactly. So this is my point. I really rate Ben Carter. I think he's great.
Didn't miss a tackle either. First for
Yeah,
tackles,
16 tackles.
dominant tackles, 80 minutes played. He had a great shift. And like I said, he's always been undervalued and not highly thought of outside the Dragons. But I do like Ben Carter. He's got a lot of work on, admittedly. I know that. He's not a finished article, but this was by far his best game in the Welsh jersey. And he's big now. He has massively bulked up, isn't he? He looks a unit now.
Well, people don't talk enough about how the Dragons line out is the best line out in Wales.
I know.
And he is a key part of that. And Plumtree added something in line-out defense as well. He was getting up and challenging really well, and he's we need more line-out forwards because in the Six Nations it was just Wainwright or Wainwright again.
Well, it's because we lost Tipuric, didn't we?
Yeah,
and Tipuric was Wales's main line-out. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I think to your point that you made earlier, to not get Plumtree on the ball more, as we've seen with his incredibly legitimate backwards passes against Zebra. He's got X factor, and again, he's another player that people forget. This is his first ever season of professional rugby. So yeah, a big Tame Plumtree fan. One player, and I'm going to prefix this with, I still think he's number one in his position for Wales.
I know as he's going because we had this conversation already.
Did we? I think Cam Winnett didn't have an amazing game.
Sorry, we're different.
And it might not just be his fault. So if you look at the Evan Roos break and the last Edward van der Merwe try, I think it was Winnett and Bevan the first time, and then the second time it was Winnett and Beetham. Something's gone wrong in the backfield, and two of them are both out wide, and the player runs straight through the middle, and they kind of both get to him at the same time, and Winnett kind of hesitates and lets the other guy get him, and both times it kind of doesn't work out. And if that's Lee Halfpenny's stood right where the break happens and brings him down. So look, like I said, I still think Cam Winnett is the best fullback in Wales, and I still think he should keep his spot. I think he had an off day.
I highlighted that on the group chat actually, and Harley genuinely thinks every time I criticise a Cardiff player, do it to wind him up, and I said no. When Evan Roos made that break, him and Bevan looked like two children, like chasing a schoolmaster. Like it was, it felt like he was running in sand on. He looked like so slow. I don't know where it was. Yeah, he is absolutely number one. But I do agree with you.
We don't like criticising players, though, do we, from our region? So this is part of the problem, when we're so embedded, And let me just say this now, right? Being honest and open, I love Rio, as you know. He had a shocker on Saturday, and it gives me no pleasure to say that he had an absolute shocker. And I know what region fans are like; they don't want to criticise their own players, and I hate doing it. But I thought that was Rio's worst game for Wales. Hopefully he'll have a much better one next time. But it was just a bad day. I still think he's a quality player. He still deserves to be starting. But he had an off day, big time. And I will say as a Dragon supporter. I
would like to talk about, I've talked about the other one Osprey. This will only take 30 seconds, there's only two others. The Dewi Lake thing that, surprised me the most was how good he was in the line-out.
He was excellent.
I think having someone like Screech there really helps that. I think when you say the line out from the Dragons is the best, I think it is the best, but the better way to frame it for me is the most effective. And what it does is that it'll make you meters and is clean. So I still don't think Screech will be in the squad going forward, barring injuries, in terms of match day. But if they can replicate that with David Jenkins, who needs a big summer in terms of how he calls the lineouts, because that was one of his weakest parts of Six Nations. Thank you. One of the weakest parts of Six Nations was him calling the lineout. I think back to the England game, he was not very good at that bit. And then, the Dewi Lake debate around is he Wales' number one hooker? Yes, he is. Absolutely.
Oh, God, yes. There's no debate to be had as far as I'm concerned.
With Evan Lloyd and Elliot D, and I'm interested to hear his thoughts on this. Where does Ryan Elias come back into this now? Is he out of the running entirely?
It depends what the plan is with the young Cardiff hookers, Evan Lloyd and the other one who I don't know what he looks like.
NFT.
Evan Daniel. Yeah. It depends. If it's a kind of no, these guys are the future, the children are the future, then maybe Ryan Elias isn't the future. But look, hooker is a high attrition position, so I wouldn't rule out anybody.
And then Gareth Thomas, who I thought was unfairly rated in Wales Online.
Yeah, 5, wasn't it? They rated him. That's very low. I thought he was 10. Decent. That tackle he put in as well was really good.
His side of the scrum wasn't folding at all.
Oh, that's right. He had a howler. He
held up
dominated.
Really well against is it Vincent Koch and then Amal Herbert?
Yeah, Koch was that side.
Yeah, so I think he held up really well. Hugh and I had a conversation about this. He is by far Wales's number one hooker, Loosehead. He has not had his best season, but I think that's down to he hasn't played enough. His minutes are low for what it should be. And I think he has more bench appearances than he has starts this year. So that will change next year. So because of Nicky obviously going, I think he has a USP, and I will keep saying this, that no one else in the Wales squad has since standard yet. His tackle ability is just so good. That chop tackle right on the line, how low he gets, just the positions he gets himself in, is a genuine point of difference. I would like to see him carry more, because I know he can carry. I've seen it. I would like to, but Gatland doesn't like his props carrying. As we see with Thomas Francis, as we've seen with various other props. So, from an Osprey's point of view, there's no other. James Ratty couldn't impose himself on the game like he can. But James Ratty is not a player who's going to make an impact off the bench. I say this time and time again about the likes of Adam Beard. If you're going to play Adam Beard, you start him. You don't bring an Adam Beard off the bench because he's not an impact player. James Ratty's made a whole career this season of being really good nuts and bolts play over 80 minutes.
But at least he got capped though, James, haven't he? He deserved that Wales cap.
I thought he was already capped. I could have sworn he got capped.
He's been in camps, but never capped. I'm also
then there's players who've got 5 caps who I've never even heard of.
I want to give a shout out to Ben Warren as well, who obviously was travelling reserve for the weekend. I thought it was a bloody great experience for him. He absolutely should be nowhere near the Wales squad at this moment in time. He's a great prospect, but in terms of prop years, he's a pup. I look from putting my Wales cap on, could be worse. I think the starting 15 going into Australia is stronger than what we'll see on Saturday. But with an Ospreys cap on, I'm sort of like buzzing. We've got fucking great squad for pre-season. and HMS Pistol League is on. Because we'll have a full squad for pre-season. So,
Right,
Like you had
okay.
last year, you mean?
it's really funny because there's a stat posted at the start of the World Cup camp. We had 14 players in the Wales squad, and that dropped to like a ridiculously low number because they kept signing for different fucking clubs. So we lost like Kai Evans, Dan Lizier, George North was basically announced to be Provence in the summer.
No, he wasn't. Don't rewrite history.
But it ended up being like 7 or something like that. It was a ridiculous amount because they all kept signing somewhere else. We had this really great 14 players in the Wales squad, and you get to the World Cup and it's like Jack Morgan, Dewi Lake, and a piece of string. That's all that's left.
God. Right. Okay. So before we wrap this up, then let's make our quick predictions for the tour to Australia.
Oh.
Three games, 2 tests, and then a game against the Queensland Reds. How many games are we going to win on this tour, and what's going to be classed as a successful tour? So, Hugh, come to you first. What's your prediction? How many tests are we going to win?
What I'll say first is that if Schmidt does a job on Gatland, writing's got to be on the wall for Gatland. I'm afraid Schmidt's had less time. If he just comes in and turns Australia around faster than Gatland's turned Wales around, not a good look. One test win is a must. And I know you tweeted that as well, Jamie. Got to win one.
I have, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I've got... The game I'm most nervous about is the Queensland Reds game, because I honestly think that could be one of the worst things I'll ever watch. Yeah.
That's just a friendly, though, isn't it? The meat and drink is the test. Now, those are the games that we really need to win.
One game, I think.
One game. Okay. James, what about you? What's your prediction? How many games are you going to win?
I think we will beat the Reds, just about.
Right.
But I'm not instilled with any confidence that we'll go out and beat Australia. As much as a shambles Australia has been, and Australian rugby is, they make the WRU look competent. They are coached by one of the best thinking brains in world rugby.
Yeah.
And with a good core group of players. There's a lot of inexperience there, but as a core group, Slipper, Ala Latoa, Tanya Latupo, Sakala Lotto, Valentini, McWright, Wilson. That's just the forwards. And then the backs, they've got, they called up Curtly Beale, so we're instantly losing a game in the 80th minute. But
I remember that like it was yesterday.
If I ever see Lou Reed in the streets, I'm gonna throw a bottle at him because it's his fault.
Do you know I used to live in Curtly Beale's old apartment in Leamington when he played for Wasps.
Bloody hell, you got money in you?
No. He was in there on his own. I was in there with 2 other people splitting the
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. The previous tenant was Curtly Beale. So I got his post for about a year.
Cool. So do we actually think then Gatland's going to be in trouble if he don't win any of these
No,
tests?
he's untouchable. We all know this.
But the pressure, though, is growing. I mean, you got to be careful with social media because X is not representative of all Welsh rugby fans. But I have noticed there is a growing discontent amongst Welsh rugby fans now, the more that we're losing for Gatland. And it does feel like the tide is turning a little bit. Like I said, you have got to be careful with social media. But if he comes back from Australia and you don't win any tests, I don't think a win against the Reds is going to cut it, to be honest. So is he going to be any... Are there going to be serious conversations? Because I think there should be. I honestly do. I think if you don't win any tests,
we can have another review.
We need a serious... Well, the problem is he's tied into this long-term contract, isn't he? So I can't see the WRU just letting him go unless he offers to resign like he did after Six Nations. He offered to resign then, didn't he?
Who do you bring in?
Well, that's a
different
conversation.
Oh, yeah, we're bringing Dan McKellar.
That's a separate conversation because there's not many people out there. But you can't go on losing, all these games in a row. His win records.
If Scotland don't sack Tooney, we should tap up Franco Smith.
Yeah, but what this thing with Gatland, you can have all the discontent if you want. It will make not one iota of difference. The WRU are smitten with Gatland, right? Because he talks a good game. He's clearly given them his vision, his project of where he thinks he can take the game to. And I'm, you know, there's no point getting angry about it. Like, there's no point getting worked up because
so we should accept all these losses then.
No, we shouldn't accept it, but we should absolutely vent our anger. But ultimately, I think it's pointless.
If the attendances in the Principality start going through the floor,
yeah, it's true.
That's when they'll change.
What was it? There's one more thing I was going to say on, and I've completely escaped my mind. The wider coaching staff, I think, needs to be taken a look at. I think Jonathan Humphreys, should be taken out the back of a car park and fired.
But what about the attack, Alex King? I mean, our attack is absolutely dreadful.
And the thing, it's not like Alex King's a bad attack coach. I liked watching him at Gloucester. And speaking to Gloucester players, they really liked him, and they attacked well under Gloucester, under King. So, look, I think that there's absolutely growing discontent, and that discontent will only grow with every loss.
Yeah.
The casual Welsh fan, you see it a lot. If you look on Facebook comments, you look on various comments, social media sites, is the Welsh fan who doesn't follow a club or a region or anything like that only sees Gatland as the man who won Grand Slams, Lions Tours, championships, right? So they're obviously going to be like, well, yeah, Gatland's a proven coach. He's going to turn us around. They don't see they're not noses like us, right? They're not stat driven. They're not reading the temperature of Welsh rugby landscape. So I think, yeah, absolutely, there's growing discontent, but ultimately it's pointless for me.
Okay, fair enough, I guess. We will leave it there. Thank you, James, and thank you, Hugh, for joining us. Pleasure to have you both on. We'll be back probably for the Wales-Australia test, where hopefully we'll be talking about a test win for Wales, because it's been a while, isn't it?
We've got to promote one thing we haven't done.
Oh, yes, for the Cardiff Central pod, yeah.
He'll get really angry. So, Cardiff Central podcast, I think this week, interviewing the CEO, Richard Holland, or Dickie Holland, as he's effectively known. So if you go to the Cardiff Central X page, which I believe is Cardiff_Central, you can leave your questions for Dickie Holland. Why haven't you signed Faf de Klerk? Why are we still training at a leisure centre?
Valid questions. They're perfectly valid questions.
So the two ends of the Cardiff spectrum. I still think me and Hugh should go and sabotage them questions, but we know they won't get asked.
No, good stuff. Thanks for the reminder. That completely slipped my mind. So yeah, Cardiff Central are going to have.
It's
Richard
not out
Holland.
loud. You're doing it because I'll get an earful otherwise.
No, I know, but you are right to mention it. So, check that one out. I'm sure that'll be quite interesting. Thanks, gents, and thank you all for listening. We'll be back next time. So until then, take care. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Ta-da.
Thank you for listening to the Rap Podcast. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed recording it. Please do rate us and tell your friends, as it really helps us to grow and get better. We'll be back next week with more of the same, and until then, enjoy your rugby.
Sports Social Podcast Network.